Hi, my name is Greg Lachaga. I'm going to be talking about humanistic theory. Now, I chose a picture of Mark Zuckerberg to start things out because I don't know if you've seen um, the memes lately on the internet, but he's being portrayed as an unhuman robot, and it's because he's been testifying in court on behalf of his company, Facebook, who's this huge social networking site. They data mined tons of social information and have sold it to third parties. And so they're talking about the ethics of that in the trial. And I just thought it was so ironic that he's portrayed as this robotic machine who doesn't understand social interaction and people, yet he is the creator of one of, if not the most social networking um, platform there is on the earth. So we're going to talk about humanistic theory, which has to do with people. And in doing research for this topic, I found that I was a little overwhelmed because a lot of the scholarly research and things that I found online were very academic and were a little confusing. And so it was hard to kind of bridge the two worlds that I found, what we learned in class and what I learned from my research. So one of the things I found was this definition, which is from the Humanist Management Network. It says humanistic management is the pursuit of strategies and practices aimed at the creation of sustainable human welfare. So that sounds kind of confusing, but it's really what we learned. Essentially, it's that people equals success. So strategies and practices aimed at creating sustainable human welfare. So as we focus on people, the business finds success, and we focus on their human welfare, which I think is really interesting because you don't normally think of a company on the side of the employee, or more than that, building the individual, building the human side of things. Now, um, from our reading in section 4, we learned that after World War II, a more educated workforce emerged. So we had this very industrial machine type uh, of work being done as the American economy was booming, and it was about classical theory, right? So productivity. And this new form of workers, these educated people, were focused more on the people. Now, the Hawthorne study that we read about came out about that time, and it shed light on what this new type of worker who maybe didn't want to sit in line and be part of this machine, what they wanted. So there were three main things. The first was people want to feel important and be recognized as individuals. Secondly, interpersonal and group relationships greatly help to determine productivity. And leaders who encourage subordinates' autonomy and responsibilities are more effective than those who closely control their subordinates. So back to back to that original definition, it's focusing on the humans, on the people, and figuring out what they want. So management changed from being set on efficiency and making things work and more focused on how can we build people to build the company. So we're going to talk about each one of these. People want to feel important and be recognized as individuals. Now, this is definitely different from that machine assembly line classical theory idea that we have of business. And it was a big change at that time. And as I studied this topic more. I wanted to know what it means um, to have individuals in business. I found an author named Acevedo who wrote an incredible research article that is so hard to understand, and it was very philosophical and technical. So he came up with what a business needs to develop for its employees. So kind of the attitude of how employees should be seen and what needs to be done for them. So he said you need to find human freedom, human dignity, the human spirit, what human persons are, what and how they ought to be and become. This sounds like the Constitution of America language. And it's almost sounds dramatic when you uh, thinking about a company in this tone, but it's actually really, really important. And he he takes, just humanistic theory. So when that simple definition of people brings productivity, and he makes it much deeper. There's actually a really interesting study that was done that kind of highlights the importance of the individual, and it was on government workers in Thailand in 1997. So 440 government workers were randomly selected for a questionnaire in which they answered questions about productivity and individuality. And the big thing they were actually looking for was counterproductivity, which they had a big problem with. So they were trying to solve that. They found that there was a lot of stress in the workplace, and that stress directly correlated to counterproductivity. And they found that individuality recognized by the business, or in this case by the government, by authority, um, helped to foster stress relief. And that stress relief in turn fixed their problem with counterproductivity. So as the government focused on the individuals in this big government chain of command, they found that their workers worked harder and did more. And so they recognized the individual. Now, going back to Aceveto's um, curriculum, his standard, it seems dramatic, right? Human dignity, the human spirit, what human persons are. But I've kind of come up to my personal idea about this, that we go to work and we spend a lot of our lives there, a lot of our lives at work. And if the company forgets to think that we are people, how can we be expected to be productive? And that's kind of the root of humanistic theory. And it's amazing because when you use it on your side, companies can thrive. And I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but I just really like this theory. So secondly, we have interpersonal and group relationships greatly help to determine productivity. So this is the second of the findings that we got from the Hawthorne study. And it's so true. And these things are also very transcendent. They apply today. I had a summer sales job last summer, and um, summer sales is horrible. It's great, but it's horrible. It's incredibly difficult. But one of the things the company did is it really worked on um, group relationships and interpersonal relationships. So I worked a lot one-on-one with my supervisors, and I felt that I was included by them and needed by them. But more than that, the company did a great job of fostering group relationships. Almost every weekend for 3 months, the company paid for us to go out to dinner, and sometimes to really nice places. And we were there as a group, and we worked together as a group, and we ate together as a group, and we kicked back and relaxed as a group. And it showed in our productivity because during the week we were going out together to do this hard job. And we looked forward to the weekend when we could relax together. And we all worked much harder. There was also an incentive where, depending on how much you sold, you could go on vacation at the end of the summer with your group. And the vacations were a big deal. It was Hawaii, it was week-long cruises, and because we were encouraged to be a group, and the company seemed to care about our relationships, we worked really hard and we sold a lot, and we earned these vacations, and our company sent us on vacation at the end of the summer, and our families to go with us. And that was huge. That was so cool. And that really just showed me the importance of companies building group relationships. And another thing I'm studying right now that I'm really passionate about actually is organizational citizenship behavior, or OCB. I found this when I was doing some research for my research methods class, and then in reviewing this topic, I found that it was referred to here as discretionary effort. So the effort that an employee exerts beyond what they feel is necessary to do their job. So anything extra, anything more. So this is an incredible topic because what you're doing is you're getting people, you're getting the full amount of out of your employees. And humanistic theory is the best at this because when you focus on people, then the people focus more on their jobs. And it's true. You work harder and you do more. There's actually a lot of really great studies about it on a tangent. There's a really good one about the police force in New Zealand. And it found that their citizenship behavior increased as the company as the police department focused on them and helped them set appropriate goals for themselves and for their units. Really cool. Anyways, that's a tangent, and that is not going to be my works cited because I didn't intend on talking about that. Okay, so lastly from that Hawthorne study, we have leaders who encourage subordinates' autonomy and responsibilities are more effective than those who closely control their subordinates. Acevedo continued, said managers should not be seen solely in terms of function, behaviors, and roles, but primarily as persons with moral sensitivity. So a manager should see themselves as a person and they should be able to be seen as a person. That's a big deal. When you feel like you have this person pulling your strings the entire day, um, that's not a person you want to work for. And you don't feel control of yourself. You don't feel like you're an individual. And it's proven that you're just not as productive. So I had a job at Home Depot for a while, and my son was going to be born. That's why I was working there, taking a break from school. Anyways, so there was this manager that was greatly feared. We were in charge of stocking the shelves, making sure everything looked clean, and dealing with vendors and stuff. It was actually a pretty cool job. And there's this one manager though that everyone was so afraid of coming in because she micromanaged everything. Now, our job is very meticulous. We have these bays that have hundreds of items in them and they have to be arranged perfectly, and it just makes it worse when you have someone standing behind you making sure you're doing everything perfectly and making sure you're back on your break within 14 minutes and 45 seconds so you can clock back in, and it was horrible, and morale was horrible, and no one wanted to work with this manager. And we got a new manager who was so laid back. We hardly saw him during the day, and he just let us go to work, and we always knew that he was working and doing his thing. And so it made us want to work harder, and we were happier, and the day didn't seem so long, and I felt like we were able to fit so much. In fact, more got done. We received awards because um, of how much work we were getting done, and we would never have been able to achieve those rewards if it was under this micromanaging supervisor. It just made it impossible to function. Now, to kind of go back to the class side of humanistic approach. Elder Bednar, who was a consultant, it was such a great introduction video. He talked about three things that companies need to do to progress in a humanistic environment. It says they need to attract good people, they need to set out clear expectations for employees, and they need to motivate employees. When I was doing summer sales, we were really motivated, and it made a huge difference. At Home Depot, we had the good manager set a clear expectation. He said, "Get to work, do what you need to do. I trust you," and we succeeded in attracting good people. I think Google is such a good example of that. They're able to choose who they want to work for them because they've created this environment that allows them to pick the best. And and attracting those good people helps drive what you want to do.